Hi guys, welcome back to Eden TV. My name's Kaylee, I'm the Garden Centre Manager here. We've got beautiful Danielle with us today.
Hello.
She's one of our horticulturists and landscape designers as well. So today we're going to be talking about design and contrasting plant shapes and all kinds of fun stuff. So we're going to help you to design your garden. And as I said, I've got Danielle here who is a designer who's going to be teaching me as well. So behind us we've got our native plants for your native garden obviously. And so where would you like to start? What about your taller plants? How about we'll start there?
Okay, so with natives, we're just going for contrast with natives because some of them can look very similar, and a native garden sometimes there's not much excitement. So we've just put together a palette of plants that have got some foliage contrast to add into your native garden. At the back of the garden, some of the taller shrubs which have a beautiful mounded shape. We've got the callistemon, great balls of fire, which gets really red new growth, and it's like a mid-olive green. The coria, which has a beautiful minty silvery foliage, that also goes into a lovely dome shape, around 1.5 meters. And the wistringia, which is very common because of its resilience and ability to grow in lots of different spaces, and that's got a dark grey. So altogether they have a really nice contrast and a lovely backdrop foliage to your native garden.
And as well, doesn't it? It has like
yeah,
mauve or white or
yes.
Also is bee attracting?
Yes, it does. They all do attract bees when they flower, except for the callistemon, which doesn't really get any significant flowers. Most callistemons do. It's related to the bottle bush, but this one you don't really see any flowers. It's really just for its foliage, but the other two get flowers and attract bees.
Awesome. So what about, I love using grasses because for me they're a really nice addition. I guess you would say they're the mediocre addition, but they really make your features pop. Is that right?
Yes, they do. And sometimes you just need some contrast with your foliage. And grass is a nice upright, they've got a very different form to the rounded shrubs. And so they don't just contrast with their colour, but they also contrast with their form to create some excitement and variance. We've got a selection of lamandras here, which are one of the hardiest plants you can grow. They're extremely widespread through Australia and they will tolerate a huge range of conditions.
So they can go into your dry areas, boggy areas?
Yeah, and different soil types. They're not fussy, they don't have lots of requirements.
Awesome. Okay, so what is this guy? What are we doing with this?
So this is a spillover. A lot of people are looking for something to hang down a retaining wall, but it's also just got an amazing form and it can cascade. It makes lots of kind of mounds along the ground. It's so thick, so it's a weed suppressant, and it's very, very hardy. No irrigation once it's established, and it's got a really dark olive colour, which look excellent with your bright emerald greens and the silvers as well. It's a really nice foliage colour and form addition.
So that's the
Hasn't
pile or whatever name it's going to have in the day.
Yeah, so
awesome. So everyone loves flowers, obviously.
Yeah.
We love having flowers for our bees, as I'm going to repeat over and over. We've got to have some pollinators. So what have we got over here, and why have you chosen these ones?
I've chosen these ones because they're flowering now, and they're also really long flowering plants that are really useful to bring the flower into your native garden. This is a emu bush, Aromophila, and it's only a low growing plant, so all of these grow at the front of your border, but it's got a very, very bright silver foliage that also contrasts with a lot of those mid-greens that we find common in native gardens, and so it's a really nice pop, plus it's got purple flowers.
And it's considered a therapeutic plant, I've heard, because of how soft it is.
Beautiful.
So there are some varieties that are like velvet almost.
Yeah, so it could be a century thing as well where you're touching it.
Yeah, right, okay.
And then we've got the kangaroo paw. Everyone is familiar with the kangaroo paw because they just flower for most of the year.
Which one's this? The bush diamond?
This is the bush diamond. It's got a light pink, which is it's a pretty addition. Attracts the bees and honey-eating birds as well, small birds, and they just need really good drainage and plenty of sunshine, and they'll flower and flower and flower in your garden.
I really like the big red. The big red's a really nice addition too because it's quite tall.
Yes, so you can have them at the front of your border if it's small, but you can also have them popping up behind some other shrubs just to get that bright flower.
So then we've got some scaevola, and your fernflower, Australian fernflower.
Yes.
So where would you put one of these?
So these again are at the very front. They're only a low growing plant. They're a little bit like a ground cover or just a mound. And they flower for about 9 months of the year, all through the warmer months. And there's lots of different colours. And I love how the different shades of lavender look together. They're a really beautiful contrast. They also come in pink and a very blue colour as well.
And them against that yellow is just beautiful.
Yeah,
like
again.
They both stand out.
Yes. So this one, Chrysocephalum, is called Desert Flame. It's got the addition of a silver foliage when it's not flowering, and just tiny little yellow button flowers.
What a contrasting plant. I love it. That's I love native gardens. That's probably my favourite if I were like a big garden.
Yeah.
But one day. So we're going to move on to a formal garden now as well. So
Okay.
So this is a really great selection of formal plants. I'll just stand on this side. So we've got some Buxus balls. We've got Buxus for box hedging, Morea, Gardenia. We'll go through them all. What's the most important thing about a formal garden, Danielle?
A formal garden needs to have symmetry and straight lines or circular lines. Traditionally, wavy and curving and biomorphic lines don't really suit a formal garden. So balance and symmetry, where you have a central point that the garden is held together, and there's lots of geometry involved, which is mirroring geometry.
Okay. And so where would you put what? So the Morea you'd usually have as your taller hedge, is that right?
Yeah, the Morea can be at the back of the border, and that's also good as a screening hedge. It can be kept to 1 metre with lots of hedging, but traditionally it's used to be about fence height, where it's a bit easier to keep at that height, and it can get even taller. It can get up to 2 metres quite easily as well. So it's got a lot of, it's just a really hardy plant, beautiful white scented flowers.
Yes, prolific flowering.
Yeah.
And bee attracting.
Yes, and bee. Yes, we do.
And another hedging option, or maybe it's the second tier down, is that?
Yeah, so this is the dwarf Buxus, the little dwarf Japanese box, for people who don't want a hedge all the time, but they just want a little hedge. And this is nice to enhance those straight lines and those straight formal lines, and just to make a really neat border to contain your gardens.
So then we've got also the gardenia, which I believe you could use as, or you could also use it as for like a ball shape, or
yeah,
is that right?
Yeah, exactly. It can grow into a nice dome, and you can mass plant your gardenias and have them behind a hedge and have them a little bit natural, or you can actually hedge them up, and with good care. They're heavy feeders, so you need to fertilise them regularly. They will form a beautiful square hedge as well.
So I guess with some feature plants, you've got some Buxus balls or Buxus cones, or any kind of fun shapes like that, or you've got some topiaries as well.
Yes.
So a topiary is a standard plant, which is more like your lollipop.
Yes.
So how would you use these?
The standards in a formal garden to accentuate the geometry that you've got. So whatever shapes that you've made, and they can go at the entries, on the exits, or the midpoints, and they're often paired so that they balance each other, and they just create some real points of interest. and enhance the formality of the garden.
And you can have this as a really neat ball, or you can have it as it is a bit
Yeah.
sort of wild. Does that still work?
Yes, and it's really just the symmetry of them. So whether you have it really tight or looser and more open, the symmetry is what's important for the formal garden.
And I guess you could use roses as well, couldn't you?
Yes, exactly. Roses look fantastic in a really sunny spot.
Yeah. Okay, so here we've got some really... How would you use these in a formal garden?
So our flowering plants are often put behind a hedge, and they're planted in mass when it's a formal garden. Unlike a cottage garden, you don't want too much busyness and too much little bits. You could potentially use a couple together or just one species and have a mass of them. And because they are looser and more open, they're traditionally used behind a hedge, which keeps it very neat.
So why have you chosen white and purple? Oranges and yellows and...
Yeah, traditionally formal gardens are more in the whites and blues and mauves, and unlike the hot colours are more often used in tropical gardens, and the classic formal garden has this kind of colour palette. All the cool, gentle colours.
Awesome. Okay, that's awesome. So we're going to move to my favourite, the succulent garden. So we've actually planted out a succulent garden here, and I'm going to just show you why the way that I did. So we'll move over here.
Okay.
So I like to say that a succulent garden is like a hot mess. So, you know, it looks really good, but it's also a bit crazy. So I've planted in some yellows and blues and purples, and I've taken on board all of Danielle's advice in the past. So you've got some Senecio chalk sticks, so that's where your blues will come in, or you've got some cotyledon or Kalanchoe silver spoons if you'd like, for your silver foliages. And then with your greens and your purples, they're just going to do the the flowering, and they're just going to add some colour. As you can see, everything is standing out. I hope that everyone can hear me. I'm just a bit far from the mic. Everything is standing out because you just want different textures and shapes and colours. If you want some height, you could always use an agave, but it's going to keep people out of your garden, isn't it? But yeah, do you have any tips and tricks for a succulent garden?
Right on point with the succulent garden. It's about contrast. Small and tall, different shaped leaves, different many options.
I just want to you don't really need to water it, is that right?
Yeah. And really open as a really hard forming soil, whereas the sandier soil is an open soil, and that means it's going to drain really well. So they don't like to dry out too often. They can dry out. The main thing is to have a sandy base soil and some really good drainage.
So if you're a lazy gardener like me, hate to admit but I am, you would get a succulent garden.
Exactly. Exactly.
Awesome. Well, that's all we've got for you today. Enjoyed our tips and tricks and design with Danielle. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to drop it down in the comment box. If you want to see anything specific, if you want us to talk about anything specific, just give it, let us know. Again, drop it in the comment box, and we'll try to get some footage out for you. All right, guys, thanks
Awesome.
for joining us today.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time.
Bye.